Just looking at accommodations really, and then distinguishing that from modifications, and it's good kind of the way it worked out. I guess the good news is we can kind of pick up where we left off from the specially designed instruction. I had a lot of you in there. How many of you were in the specially designed instruction? I see several of you. Yes. So we can kind of pick up, so to speak, where we left off. Now, in the last session, we had some learning. We did a little attention getter, and it's always good to get people's attention because then you can teach them. And we had a master teacher here yesterday, David Sloan, who works up at UPike, and he was a principal in Pike County before, and I had the pleasure of working with him at several different places. And he was actually my wife's principal for about 20 years, and just a marvelous guy. But he taught us something else. We started using it in this special design instruction. So let's see if we can follow suit here. Let's see. Oh.
What was ahead of you?
Hey, can I get this table back here?
They wouldn't in there.
All right, now what? Oh, put your hands back down. Put your hands back down. Now, when I do this, watch what they do. Okay, watch what they do. All right, so it's the high five method, right? And it's one of those things, like we could turn the lights off if we could figure out how to do it, but then it would throw the technology off. Some people turn the lights down. Some people play a song. And that means some kindergarten teachers say, in my, I see you sitting up straight and getting your materials ready for the lesson. I see you lining up for lunch. I see you moving to the next center. That's a attention getter strategy, right? So the one that we're going to use today, and this is a big group, when I raise my high five, you're going to raise both hands as quickly as possible. Both hands straight up in the air. All right. So if I've got it up, yeah, there you go. So that's what we're going to do. Right. And that will kind of focus us on some of the things that we're here to talk about. Now, we know that when we get people's attention, then we got to give them the goods, right? We got to talk to them about where we're headed. What's the goal of the lesson? And so when we, I forgot what I did with my clicker. When we talk about that, we always clarify the learning target. We try to make the learning target something that every student can understand, right? We want to put it in clear language, and we want to make sure that it's kind of concise and that everybody knows where we're headed, what we're doing. Okay? So, we're going to distinguish how accommodations differ from modifications. That's our number one thing. We might back up a little bit and take a look at some executive functioning things that we ended up missing out on over here across. That was the good news, that we're going to get the rest of the story. Like the Paul Harvey, how many of y'all old enough to remember Paul Harvey? Oh.
I don't know if I'm old enough, but I know.
What are you supposed to do? Oh, yeah, there you go. All right. So, at least after you had chicken, if we do that several times, maybe you won't fall asleep, okay? Right? Maybe you won't fall asleep. So, then we'll look at some instructional and testing accommodations and how we provide access through those accommodations. We're going to look at the difference between accommodations and modifications, and we're going to understand the responsibility of the IEP team in the provision of accommodations. Now, would you say, if I asked you a question and I said, what do you spend more time doing in your job? Do you spend more time instructing around IEP goals, or do you spend more time accommodating? Talk to your neighbor. Come up with it. What do you do? And what should you do? Right? Let's talk about it. Right? You guys are rowdy back here. It's all right. It's her. She's been here since 6 o'clock, so she's going to sleep.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. No. You guys aren't paying attention. Leave us with it.
She must have the idea.
All right. Okay, so we got to do something to stay. We got to do something to stay awake, right? Because this guy's boring. All right. And we're going to look at the data how to determine accommodations effectiveness and teacher impressions. I'm going to bet that I put too many things in the PowerPoint just like I did last time, and we won't get through all that, but we're going to try to. Okay. So, Brenda, can you switch on the tab up there where it says copy of special, the fifth one over? Just switch back to that for a second. Okay. So last time we were talking about the difference between, over here you guys remember the difference between what a teacher does as opposed to what a student needs. What is it that we call what a teacher does in a co-teaching classroom if you're a special ed teacher or you're a paraprofessional, paraeducator? What is it that the teacher does? What do we call that from the last class? It was the topic.
It's 3 letters.
It's 3 letters. What is it? SDI. What's that? Specially designed instruction. So that's what the teacher does. That's intentional toward the goal, the IEP goal, that we take data on, that we especially provide targeted instruction on, that we change the method, we adapt it, we make it special, and it's intentional toward that goal. Okay? But now if it's an accommodation, what's that? That's what the student needs, right? That's what the student needs in order to make progress within the curriculum. So, let me give you an example. If I said, let's see if this means anything to anybody. See this may date me a little bit, okay? Mary's violet eyes make Johnny stay up nights, period. What is that? Yes, the planets, right? And this woke generation got rid of Pluto, so we've got to get rid of the period so we don't have any punctuation, so it messed it up. But it's okay, you young people. It's all right. We can roll with it. But what did that help us do? When my 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Smith, that dear lady, she was meaner than a rattlesnake, okay? Mrs. Smith, are you Mrs. Smith? No. Oh, but you're meaner than a rattlesnake. I get you. Let's you step back 2 steps here. Okay, when dear Mrs. Smith, I guess it was Miss Smith, I can't remember. Maybe it might have been Miss McCoy. Anyway, and I was a Hatfield, so we didn't get along very good. So, whomever gave me that, I can still remember it. Mary's violet eyes make John. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter. You get it right, Saturn, Uranus, and Pluto, right? Right? So Mary's violet eyes make Johnny stay up nights, period. Boom! I can remember that. Effective. All these years later. You know how long it's been since I was in the 4th grade? A long time. A long time. I'm coming up on 40 years being out of high school. So, all right. So, now, if I give you that, is that specially designed instruction? You kiddos that had class last period there over there, is it specially designed? If I give you that?
Not if you give it to me.
So what do I have to do to make it?
You have to teach it to me.
You have to teach it to you. You have to teach the metacognitive. That's a big word. That means make you reflect on how you learn. Metacognitive process. That's a big word, metacognitive process. It's just simply, the definition is think, how do I think about my learning, or how do I reflect on my learning? Okay? So, if I give you an accommodation, if I give you a mnemonic, I've given you an accommodation, right? I've given you something. If I teach you how to do that, specially designed instruction. See the difference? Same way with a graphic organizer. You guys use graphic organizers in your classes? Sometimes they apply those to writing assignments. Okay? You got to know how to keep up with the information. Where does the supporting details go? Where's the main idea go? Where's the topic sentence? All that stuff, right? I'm not a writing specialist, but I'm just saying, if I teach you how to create your own graphic organizer that relates to you and that it can help you learn, then I've done special design instruction. Now, lots of our kids have these issues. These are what we call executive functioning issues, okay? I want you just to take a second and look. Students that have difficulties with planning, okay? The description is they don't have the ability to look ahead, determine the importance, and map out how to reach a goal. So it's goal setting, okay? Organization. How many kids do you know that show up without their materials? How many kids can't get something taken home and brought back, signed by the parent? How many kids have their book bags a mess? Right? That's what we're talking about. Executive functioning. Now, time management. How to estimate and allocate time. Prioritize the use of time. So I'm thinking, how can I take the lesson, if it's a project, and teach my students how to manage their time so they can get things done that need to be done in sequential order? I got to give them some support, right? I got to give them some checklist. I got to give them some reminders. And that's where the special part comes in, okay? You could almost apply this to any kid in America, right? And some of them will have issues with this. But our students with disabilities have more issues with this. And the number one problem that I would say, if you had the opportunity to read the psychological report that makes the information that we bring in that make a student eligible for getting an IEP, you know what I'm talking about? The IQ, the psychologist comes, gets the kid out and carries him down the hall, right, does the IQ test, and then somebody does the achievement test, and we put all that information together. And one of the key things that we see, well, I tell you what, it's right here. See that? Working memory. Almost without fail, when you start to look at those, and you look at those 5 areas on the IQ test, one of them is working memory. And what working memory is holding information in your short-term memory long enough, or in your working memory long enough that you can apply it and work a problem. Or you can apply it and understand what you just read. Or you can apply it and put those steps in order that you can write a good paper. Okay? You can organize a paragraph, or you remember the punctuation. So you've got to be able to keep that information. So the whole goal of education, folks, is to be able to move things from the working memory to the permanent memory. And that's hard for kids with disabilities. That's why when we look at our lessons, and we look at the lessons that our special ed teachers are teaching the first time. Now, can you deliver specially designed instruction as paraeducators? After the teacher has introduced it for the first time, you can work with it, right? So you need to know some of the things that we would do to hold information and apply to current complex situations. Now, if we do too much of it, if we give the kid too much information, like sometimes we will do in a regular general education classroom where they're flying because they've got all this pressure, it's not the teacher's fault. They got all this pressure to cover the standards. How many of you been in a 5th grade reading class? Whew. High stakes poker in there. I'm telling you, they'll about kill you, but we can't stop to do that and back up and do that over because we got to cover this, right? So when you're working with those kids in those small groups, you've got to figure out, how can I do it? How can I do something special for them? How can I overcome their working memory? Now, one of those ways is to teach them to make mnemonic devices. Okay? back up one slide, Brenda, on that same, right here down at the bottom. 20. Yeah, it's in presenter mode. Oop.
Yeah,
Is
you
it?
can see
Okay.
that. I can see.
Okay. Can you guys see that? Okay, so this is a goal template. All right. So what I wanted to show you is when you're working with that kid, and I gave the last group a copy of a goal sheet where you'd have, if you've got 6 or 7 kids, how many kids do you have on average in your classes that have IEPs?
Anywhere from 5 to 10.
Are you working with FMD students? Yeah. So you're going to know what those goals are because you're going to be working on the alternate standards for some of them, and then some of them are going to have other goals, right? But in a co-teaching setting, let's just say in a general ed co-teaching setting, I'm going to say 7 or 8, maybe 10 at the most. That's a lot. 10's a lot. Okay. Don't tell anybody I said that, but that's really the truth. But when you're in there in that classroom, you got to know. You have to know what their goals are. Okay, and so we were talking about working memory. And so what I'm showing you here is during a small group instruction, after being provided maybe a step checklist of how to create a mnemonic, and we might have some of the steps left out, but we're going to teach them to create their own mnemonic device in order to do what? Solve equations in algebra. Okay? What happens with kids with disabilities is they can't process the information. If they've got processing speed issues plus working memory, that's a dual problem, right? They can't process it. It's coming at them too fast. So we got to slow them down, give them extra practice opportunities, give them opportunities to respond, and it's all around that goal. But what we want you to do is, do we have a copy of that goal sheet? Somebody have one of those?
There you go.
Right here. Okay, so what I did in that last session was I gave you a copy of the goal sheet. And what it's got, student 1, you can put maybe a nickname on there or something. You don't want to breach confidentiality. Here's a confidentiality person. I don't want to do that, right? Get in trouble over that. But you might put something on there that you know who this is, right? You might put a picture of them or whatever. Maybe not the identifying information, the demographic. But what'd she say? Do not take a picture and put it on there. See, she's the confidentiality person, right? You've got to keep this on. You got to keep this safe and keep it with you, right? So, but the whole idea is to know when you're in that group, you might have 5 different goals, and the law says that it's a civil right that we get specially designed instruction. We're not just accommodating. Accommodating is when we give you a tool to give you access. We're not just accommodating. What is specially designed instruction? We're teaching something special, and it's intentional toward the goal, and we're going to take data on it, and it's going to produce a skill in lots of ways that you can take from math class to science class to English class. And what do I mean by that? If I teach you how to use that mnemonic device, or how to create your own mnemonic device that's going to resonate with you and relate to what you relate to, and you have the steps down, you can use it everywhere. Builds independence. So those are the things that make SDI what SDI is. Okay? Now, we can get back to our feature presentation. That was like the precursor to this. But I really wanted you to see the problem. I tell you what, I'm jumping around like a crazy person. I just had another thought. Let's go back. Let's go back and finish. Let me finish a few thoughts on this. Okay, so how many of our kids have response inhibition issues? Anybody know what that is? How many kids have impulse control difficulty? If I said, all right, now we're going to have an activity here, and we're going to run centers, and you're going to have an activity here, and we're going to have an unmanned station over here, And there's going to be you're going to move to the places. We're not going to move the station to you. We're going to move you around in the classroom. Because movement is really good for being able to process information, get it to move from the left to the right, or the right to the left, vice versa, whichever way you need to get it to move, right? When you get kids moving in your classes, so if you're setting up those centers, but you got one that tears down the daggone classroom. Y'all got those? They tear the classroom down when you let them move. So you have to do a little mini lesson with him to teach him impulse control. This is how you move from a station to a station. This is how. Now, I know it's not that simple, okay? But the idea is sometimes we can't take anything for granted. And these are the issues that our kids have that can turn into specially designed instruction.
We're interrupting him.
See, he should have used proximity and no, I got his eyes and 40 others already.
So this is like, okay, so let's see if we can put some, perspective to this. This is Santa Claus, okay? Hence the goodies.
And those are not.
And I'm the tax man, okay? I'm the IRS guy, all right? So just roll with it, all right? Roll with us. So, what'd I tell you? What did I tell you about him? It's all right. We're working on specially designed instruction, and when we get it down, we won't need you anymore. No more behaviors. He says he's just got 220 days left. He don't care what I do. We're begging him to stay, though. I promise you. So, he's a great guy. Anyway, specially designed instruction and accommodations both have their place. I'm not saying specially designed instruction is better than accommodation. Accommodations are also required. It's what the student needs. It's those graphic organizers. It's those tools. It might be a reader. It might be a step-by-step process on how to use the bathroom. Got those? Picture schedules for those students. That it might be an augmentative communication device. You want to talk about specially designed instruction, one of the most important things you ladies support is teaching those kids how to communicate. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. So, yes, because that's I mean, they can't have relationships, they can't keep themselves safe, and you can't teach them anything if you can't communicate with them, right? So, right, have a lot of nonverbal kids, so we got to be figuring out how we're going to do that, right? So we got to figure that out. So, anyway, enough about executive function, but you see, these things right here, we need to learn how to attack these problems, because these are the things that make, like the only people that get SDI are kids with IEPs. So what is SDI? It's designed for kids with IEPs. It's just to meet their unique circumstances. It's to provide them access. And so one of the ways we do that is with accommodations. So let's go to the accommodation piece now. Now that we've overcome Doug. Let's go to that first slide. All right, so let's do an engagement strategy really quickly, all right? In a silo, get out a piece of paper, get out a pencil. Oh, we're going to make you work. We're going to make you work for just a minute. Now, here's what we're going to do. I'm using proximity back here. These guys froze to death. Absolutely froze to death. What are we doing here? See, I told you I couldn't tell you why it's always cold in here. Because I get fired. All right, so take out a piece of paper and just think about accommodations. Think about providing accommodations. See if you can define accommodations. What are accommodations in a classroom, in a co-teaching classroom? What are accommodations? What are accommodations in a regular classroom, in a co-teaching classroom? Define that. What are they? Now, we're doing an engagement strategy, so you're thinking first, you're writing second, And then after you get your answer, nobody copy. You're on the honor system. Hey. It's okay. It's okay. A couple of days ago, I couldn't either. I was like, I hurt my shoulder. So we're thinking, we're writing, then we're going to have a conversation with our elbow partner. And if I was Anita Archer, and I'm not, she's this little short woman that's a great teacher, and I wish you could have seen how she controlled Doug, honestly. She would number you, okay? 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. You all working a triad. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Now, so then I would say on this third piece right here, now there's a point to this. You remember your number? You're either 1 or 2. I mean, it's not high up on the cognitive chain here. Okay? 1 or 2. Now, what I would say is after you think on your own about accommodations, you write about accommodations. And then we're going to pair it. So ones are going to tell twos what your answer was. So do it. Ones tell twos. Have a conversation. Tell what your answer was. Oh, yeah. We'll never get this bunch back in order. Can you help them get back in order? Can you help me? All right. That's okay. All right, here we go. Hey. Keep having your conversation. Now, let's go on through this. Honestly, we want to do it with fidelity. After we pair you, you've had your conversation, and you've shared it with your neighbor. Now rewrite your answer. Did you learn something from your neighbor? Did your neighbor have something different? Did you teach your neighbor something? So I would say ones and twos, rewrite your answer. That's what I would say to the groups. Rambunctious bunch. What do y'all think it is? What are accommodations?
Anything you use to help that child. You have to make it individualized, but it can be a number of things, really.
Yeah.
So you can't just say accommodations are. It's not.
And if I give it to you, it's an accommodation, right?
Yes.
If I hand it to you, if I hand it as a tool, it's an access thing. It puts you on a level playing field. You see what I'm saying? But if I teach you how to use that sucker, what is that? Specially designed instruction. SDI. You see the difference? Now, if I said to you, special ed students have a civil right to receive specially designed instruction, does that change your attitude about what's most important? They don't always, right? They don't always get it, right? So, now, I know you guys are paraeducators. You have to collaborate with your special ed teacher on what they want you to do. You know what I'm saying? They're the ones that are introducing it. The regular ed teacher supports it, and you support it. That's kind of how that whole role thing works, right? But
if it only works like that.
Yeah. But what now? Great conversation back here. Thank you guys. So now Anita Archer would say, walk around, look around, talk around. Walk around, look around, talk around. So you're surveying if they're engaged, right? You're talking to, they never know when you might listen in, right? So you're keeping everybody on their, what she would call toes. Toes. Everybody on their toes, right? Hey, everybody on your toes? All right. Now, she would also say, walk around, look around, talk around, have some, listen into the conversations. Maybe give some corrective feedback. So the whole conversation back here was, if we give you the tool, it's an accommodation. What were some of the, now, to finish up here, everybody has to be on their toes because I might call on you to share. Can you tell me what an accommodation is? What'd y'all talk about?
We were talking about adjusting the curriculum to fit the kids that have IEPs for what they need.
Okay. Okay. So what's an example that you're talking about?
When they have spelling tests, they have 5 words, we shorten it to 3, extra time.
Okay. If you shorten it to 3, could that be a modification?
Yeah.
Does that change what's learned? Not always, right? Not always. If you are learning how to do consonant vowel consonant words, and the kid can only process 3, that can be an accommodation. But if they don't learn that skill, like if you got a bunch of skills on that sheet, in that spelling sheet, and you diminish one of those skills, you take one of those skills away, like ed on the end, or the suffix or the affix on the front, then if you've changed the content and they don't learn as much, then that's a modification. But if you give them a tool and it puts them on a level playing field so that they can learn the same content, we've met the expectation of the standard, that's an accommodation. See the difference? So I'm glad you said that the way you did, because that brings out, that just teaches the whole PowerPoint right here, right? Accommodations are tools that level the playing field and do not change the intention of the learning target. Don't change what the kid's learning. We're not changing that. Who gets modifications? Right here at my table right here. Who gets modifications? Kids that are on
IEPs.
No. Who gets modifications? Who gets the content changed slightly? The big rock, there you go. The 1%ers, right? And I say that in the nice, that's my favorite group, okay? In all of 36 years that I've been in education, and Brenda's got 41. She's going to hit me. See how far away from her? In all of the years that I've worked in education, the most fun I had was working in the FMD classroom with kids on alternate assessment. It's the most fun I had. I'm not making that up. I can still see those kids. The kids that were blind, the kids that had autism, and the kids that I'm running around chasing trying to figure out what to do with them next, right? They get the alternate. They get the content changed. They get the modifications. All of our kids that we work with in the co-teaching that are getting a diploma, we shouldn't be changing the content. They're supposed to meet the standard. Okay, you see what I'm saying? So if you're watering it down too much, you're making a modification. Lord, I'm not even going to tell you what I just thought. I thought Doug was back. I was about ready to get defensive. Watch your. So, accommodations are tools. Accommodations do not change the intention of Miss Learning Target over here. Okay? She's the math guru, right? She knows those learning targets inside out and upside down. So when you're accommodating, you just give them a tool like a number line, right?
Bead string.
Bead string. Okay.
Algebra tile.
You see what I'm saying?
Like that.
So I'm glad you came in, because that gave me some content.
But the word modify means change.
Modify changes what you learn.
Right, but I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Yes. Not what, yes, exactly. That's exactly right.
When I'm
So,
accommodating those, I'm getting that child to the point to where they need to meet that standard, just maybe in a different mode. Like, I provided them a bead string when everybody else doesn't get a bead string, right? But it also needs to be, if I'm giving them something, it has to be taught with that specially designed instruction. So if I give them an accommodation and I've not taught it with a specially designed instruction, and they don't know how to use it, it's usually pointless. So I'm giving them a graphic organizer.
good.
I'm giving them, I need to make sure I'm taught that graphic organizer. They need to know how to use it. And many of those organizers that we give them can be done in math, that can be done in science, it can be done in reading. We can even use it most of the time for writing. So you got to think about the way that child can use it overall throughout the day. Now, it's not a one-time and done. Right, they're gonna use it over and over and over again. So that's one of the things that we wanna make sure that they know what we're doing.
That's perfect, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're doing great. And so look here with this bold print right here. Just read this. Just kind of everybody's eyes up here for just a second. With this in mind, it's important to recognize that accommodations do not change what students learn, but rather change how they access learning. Okay? So, if I read to a student and they answer questions on similar age grade level or similar age level, okay? So if they're functioning on a, let's say, instructional level of grade 7, and the kid's 13, similar age 13, they can do just, if I read it to them, that puts them on a level playing field so they can answer questions just like the kid that can't read it, right? Or the kid that can read it, I should have said. Okay? It's getting late in the day. All right, so let's go on. Expectations for learning are not changed. Requirements for the task are not reduced. Students are expected to learn the same things. The integrity or the intent of the meeting of the standard is not changed. It remains. The integrity remains. So, the kids learning the same thing, they're meeting the standard. The law says that kids have to, we are supposed to be closing gaps by having specially designed instruction provided to help students close those gaps so they can meet the intention of the standard. That's the law. That's the civil right. That's what they're supposed to be getting. That's why I'm saying, I can't tell you that accommodations don't have their place because they do. And you can accommodate all day long in any kind of manner in a regular classroom without any kind of scrutiny. It's only when you go to that state test that you have specifics that you have to be worried about, right? You can only give a reader if a reader is warranted, if they're eligible for it, if they have an IP goal, if they get it consistently, that kind of thing. They can only get a scribe if they have documentation that supports that and they get it every day consistently, or not every day, but consistently. Yeah, right. So you can, you can accommodate a student if they can't get it and it needs to be part of your teaching process and you're teaching them how to use that accommodation, then it becomes specially designed instruction and it's okay, right? It's okay. But you can't give them things that they don't qualify for. When we have accommodations for representation, we're going to repeat directions, read aloud, use larger bubbles on answer sheets. That's how we represent the content, okay? So we're making an accommodation to the content that's being represented, okay? But then if we're expecting a response from the student, we're going to allow them to give us, they're going to mark their answers in the book, they're going to use reference aids, they're going to use a computer to respond. So some kids may not, like, let me give you an example. So you've got a kid that has orthopedic issues, right? Maybe they've got muscle tone issues, and they're getting OT out the wazoo, right? And they don't have the strength to use a pencil to make so that we let them use a keyboard, so they can respond. And it puts them on a level playing field so that they can give us the answers and they're not being discriminated against. You see that? You see what I'm saying? So you can't expect everybody's got to have a pencil and everybody's got to write the letters. Can't do that, right? Because you've got a kid that's going to be in there that can't do that physically. So you've given them accommodation there for response, okay? If the kid can't see the content up here, you give them an accommodation, right? You give them something to where they can see. You get a magnifier, or you give them a sheet that is that you've magnified, right? That you've made the letters larger. Okay, so you see what I'm saying? So those are the different types. How you represent the content might be accommodated. How they give it back to you might be accommodated, and then sometimes we have timing and scheduling things. You got this kid that needs to get up and move, right? He needs to get up and move. Or he needs extended time. He processes tremendously slower, right? Remember we talked about processing speed and how that can impact, right? Sometimes kids process too quickly. You say, well, they get a high score on the IQ test, but it still may cause a problem because if they're processing too quickly, they may be making careless mistakes. That's the kid that does that, right? You see when you hurry and get done, boom, gone. But then when he looks back, he's processed it too quickly and not thought deeply enough about it. So, and then the setting, sometimes kids need special lighting. You have kids in your FMD classrooms that benefit from having the lights lower. It's calming, isn't it?
We have one that just turned them off.
Turn them off, right? Right. So, there's all kinds of things to consider there. Distractions, study carols, those types of things. So we've got all that stuff. So I want you to, we're going back to our thinking jot right here, okay? It's another thinking jot. I want you to look at this picture and tell me what you see and be ready to share, okay? Be ready to share. What? Hey, now everybody just stand up. Oh, God. Oh, my gosh. All right, and everybody just sit back down. Oh, yeah. Now stand back up. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So, just remember that movement helps students process information. Okay? Remember that movement helps process. Kids have a hard time sometimes. And I'm telling you, if you'll use that a little bit, you'll incorporate that into your lessons and into your work that you're doing with students with disabilities, it will help you. Okay? Let them move around the room a little bit. Don't keep them in a daggone carol all day. Right? All right. So, over here at this table, since you were so willing and ready to talk about this picture.
Still give me your answer.
All right. So, everybody give her your attention. She's going to talk about this picture and what it kind of says.
So this is Janelle's thought.
Okay, that's fine. Janelle's thoughts presented by Krista. Okay.
On this side over here.
Okay.
What'd you say, Janelle?
They're all doing the same thing, but they're not at equal heights. They're
Right.
so you eliminate by giving those who are smaller the boxes to make them all fit.
Okay. So, what did you all have?
So we got
No, I didn't say it was wrong. I'm just going to let them build on it. Okay? We got boxes, so go ahead and build. What do you see? I mean, what?
First group are on level playing field and the other groups are not. And they have to have
And they're at
accommodations.
different levels of learning,
Okay.
or understanding, I guess.
Perfect. Okay. What's another thought? What did you guys have a different thought over here? You guys work with FMD students.
No, that's what we were talking about. They're a level playing field. Over here, they have accommodations so they can all be at the same level.
Okay. All at the same level? What'd you all think? Anybody have any different thoughts than what they've had over here? What'd you all think back here?
I think they're different levels, but they're all eager to answer.
They're all trying to do the same thing, aren't they? Would you say they're all trying to get the books, right? They're all trying to get to the learning. That's what I kind of see there.
See, none of us.
What did you all see? She's going to answer.
I do, because
What's your
I remember
name?
over there someone.
What's your name?
Talk about it. Gloria.
Gloria's got the floor.
Okay, this side, I remember it being equal because they're equality because they're all on the same playing field, and this side was equity because it's like they were.
Oh boy, did I hit the jackpot.
I remember.
Save the best for last. That is fantastic. Give her a hand. What a smart table. Now, she said it. Okay, here's my story. I've literally, when I was a director at Pikeville Independent, I did that for about 10 years. I had some teachers that were resistant to providing accommodations. You ever seen that? Because they say things like, well, everybody else don't get that, so why would we give it to them?
We don't have time to do it.
But the whole idea of accommodations is that we provide equity. We should be providing access through equity. And you said it. I don't have to say it. Because what we're doing here is we're giving everybody what they need when they need it, right? And they can all get to the same place. These are the accommodations. So this one needs a little more to get there. This guy, he doesn't need as much, right? So this was an equitable response. This is an equality response, right? So you see the difference between equity and equality. And that really comes and plays itself out sometimes depending on people's philosophy, depending on their politics, depending on lots of things and what their understanding. But we are inclusion champions. Okay? I've been working with students with disabilities for a long time, almost 4 decades. And I will be the first one to tell you that students belong. They have a right to be there. And they have a right to get what they need when they need it. And they have a civil right to be instructed around those goals, to meet their needs so that they can meet the standards. And that's really what accommodations are. And then when you get into that modification piece, accommodation, modification, we don't want to change the intent of the learning with the accommodation. And with the modification, it's okay. But that's really, in most instances, only for a select few, okay, that have real severe disabilities. Okay? I don't know any other way to say it. Okay? I love that group though. Okay? I had a student not too long ago, really. I've been here going on 8 years, and she was the highlight of my day. She actually came over here, and we had a pageant. You guys remember?
Yes, I remember.
And she was the queen. She's the princess. Okay. But she loved music better than anything. And I played the guitar, and I had a FMD teacher that also played the guitar. And we had her a keyboard. She played the keyboard, and she played the tambourine. But she had significant things going on, okay? I'll just put it that way. But she was the highlight of the day. She belonged. Next slide, before I get emotional.
I witnessed that.
Yeah.
There that day.
Brenda would come in. I mean, we would start our day lots of times with the news you can use kind of thing. And he had a lesson, geography lesson, whatnot. And then we would always get to that place where we played a song. You know, and I would come out of my office, and it was always fun. You know, we always had a great time doing that. And the whole class enjoyed that. But she needed that, right? She needed that. So we gave her what she needed when she needed it. So instructional accommodations are changes to the delivery of classroom instruction or the accompanying materials. Instructional accommodations change how students learn, but do not change what they learn, okay? The access piece, and we've hit that hard. So let's take just a minute and let's pause and reflect, okay? I want you to get out a piece of paper, and I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to write answers to them, okay? I'm going to give you a quiz, okay? I want to check it. Now, I want to check for understanding. And it doesn't take long, and I don't want you to use your notes. And Brenda, you can just take that, go back to the top of the PowerPoint. Because we're just about, are we close to being out of time? Sure we do, Mr. Buckets. Keep going. Okay.
You don't have time?
I can't. I have no time? We're going to, yeah, let's take 5. Let's do this. Because this is something, I want you to take things back with you, okay? And so, engagement, we did the think, pair, share, and I call it think, pair, share on crack. Because we think, pair, share, and share again and rewrite and do. And so the processes are going, right? We're doing all kinds of things with that, right? But right here, we're going to recall from a blank slate. And you should be doing this with your students every day. You should be asking, when they come into that small group with you, what did you learn in that last class? What did you learn yesterday? Can you tell me one thing that you learned yesterday? And force them to do it. Give me 2 things you learned, right? I don't know, you can't force them to do anything these days, right? But you get the idea. Now, so here's the first question. What is SDI? What is SDI? What did you learn that SDI is? I gave you a ton of things in our presentation that SDI is. And we know one thing that SDI is not, so go ahead and write that with it. One thing that SDI is not. And then your last 2 questions, tell me what the difference between an accommodation and a modification is. Now let me ask you something. Can we take data on that? And do we have goals that should center around improving working memory? If we improve working memory, we've done a lot for our kids. Okay? So then I would circulate, I would listen, I would look in, and I might even take this up for a data point on progress monitoring. But it has to be intentional with the goal. Oh, I just gave you an answer. Hey, try writing and doing that at the same time. All right, as you finish up, I appreciate you guys. You've been a great group. I've really, really enjoyed working with you today. If we can help you guys in any way, don't fail to hesitate to reach out. I know a lot of you are from Letcher County, and we love coming to Letcher County and working. So thank you all, and we'll give you Mr. Santa Claus is coming up here.